Wars collectors, and welcome to another Bossk Bounty video, and welcome to episode 216 of Ask Bossk Bounty. This is the weekly Q&A series that drops every Sunday, where I take your questions from the comment section below and do my best to answer them. So if you have a question for next week's episode and you want to be featured in the video, be sure to leave that question in the comment section of this video, and as I said, hopefully you'll be featured next week. Before we get on to this week's questions, I've got a couple of thank yous and shout outs to say. I did attend Echo Live in Redditch yesterday. I bumped into many good friends, including my good friend Only One Kenobi. It's really good to see you, buddy. And also I need to say a big thank you to Ian Butler from IB3D, because he actually gifted me this 3D printed Bossk's Bounty like slab thing. So if you don't know who Ian Butler is, he runs IB3D. They're on Facebook. I will leave a link in the description below, and he does loads of really cool like 3D items. I've purchased a few off of him in the past, like I've got the Mandalorian's Forge and things like that. But he meant to give me this way back at Celebration last year, but we haven't bumped into each other since, so he said he'd be bringing it with him, and yeah, it's really, really cool. It says Bossk Bounty in Urabesh. I think that's how you pronounce the Star Wars language. He also let me have a bunch of these stands. Only One Kenobi has reviewed these on his channel, and I did want to buy some, but unfortunately didn't have any for sale. But he had a little bag of them that he took for Nick, and he said, you know, just take a few of these. I'm sure Nick won't mind. Sorry, Nick. And I'm actually using one of my ARC Trooper there, because these ARC Troopers are one of the worst for being able to stand up properly. Their peg holes are pretty awful, and you know, because of the weight of all their armor and bits and bobs that they've got going on, they are pretty difficult to stand. Unless you like pose them in some weird way. But if you just want them standing there like that, they often fall over pretty easily as soon as you nudge your cabinet or whatever. So these are a really cool design. You basically slot the foot under there. I did say to Ian maybe they could make them slightly longer so that the other foot is also on the stand. He doesn't actually design these. He uses the 3D files, but he's, you know, given the people that he does get the files from feedback to see if maybe they can use some different ones, and also maybe use clear ones as well. But these ones are perfect for me because most of my cabinets are like a black or a sort of dark grey. So these are going to go very, very nicely for all of the figures that I need stands for. So thank you for those, Ian, and thank you, Nick. I also need to say a big thank you to Jean-Marc, who sent me this, I think it's 3D printed, Blurg and Frog Lady. And I'll show you a close-up of Frog Lady very, very quickly. They're very delicate. He does say that in the note. I'll read the note in a minute, but this is incredible. I really do like that. The sculpting's great. You've even got these little frog spawn things in there, and the lid does lift off of that. So, you know, why Hasbro hasn't done a Frog Lady yet, I don't know. A lot of people do want that character, and as you can see, she looks pretty damn cool. So just to stand there with all of my other figures, she's going to look great. So thank you, Jean-Marc. He also sent the Blurg. I don't want to pick up the Blurg because he's balancing there nicely. But I'll just read out the note that he did send. And it says, "Dear Tim, here are two customs that I thought would complete your Razor Crest display. I gave up waiting for Hasbro to make them, so decided to 3D print them myself. And of course, that's when the Blurg gets pipelined. They have limited articulation and are quite brittle, fragile, but can be placeholders until we get them in TVC. Thank you for all you do for the community, and looking forward to your next videos. Best, Jean-Marc." And he has a Instagram account called A_world_in_375. I will leave a link to his Instagram page in the description below if you want to check him out. He does other cool 3D printed stuff. So I'm really liking those, buddy. I really appreciate it. I cannot wait for the TVC Blurg to see what that is like, but in the meantime I think he looks pretty cool. We've got Quill sitting on there nicely. He sits on there perfectly, and Frog Lady is just awesome. So thanks once again to everybody, and with all that being said, if you happen to enjoy this video and enjoy the questions and enjoy the answers, then hit a like button down below, subscribe if you're new, and let's get on to the first question. Gursakar says, "Do you think we'll get any more Jabba's Palace barge skiff characters in TVC, Yots Oren, Nisad, Jiran, or do you think they are done with Jabba stuff at the moment?" Yes, unfortunately I think we are probably done with that now. Of course we do have the Jabba and the 8D8 to come still. We don't have those in hand, but in terms of new reveals for anything Jabba related, I think we're pretty much done with that. I think Hasbro have got, you know, other things to look at now basically. So unfortunately for the time being, we're done. Darth Panther J says, hey there BB, there is a push for a Farm Boy Luke from A New Hope. I wonder if anybody at Hasbro has thought about the potential of releasing a carded version and a deluxe version that would have his boonie hat, poncho, training helmet, T16 model, that long rifle he carries, Stormtrooper blaster and belt, etc. What do you think about this? I'm pretty sure that Hasbro would have most definitely thought about that. I mean, this is Hasbro. They do like a repack or a reuse. But jokes aside, I'm pretty sure if they're thinking about doing a Luke Farm Boy, then they'll be definitely exploring other ways of, you know, getting him out again in a pack of some description, like you've just said there, of all those items, maybe a deluxe version. There's other ways that you can do it. I myself would like to see them separate some of those things, like, you know, for example, you mentioned there the Stormtrooper blaster and the belt and things like that. I would like to see that as its own release, like an upgrade to the version that we have already in TVC, because that is a little bit different to how he's dressed in his like standard Farm Boy outfit, basically. But yeah, in terms of the actual Farm Boy, yeah, including the hat, the poncho, all that other kind of stuff, I'm sure they're thinking about it, buddy. Noble Anubis says, hi BB, I hope the next HasLab is a sandcrawler like most people. But question for next week, why haven't we got a Mando 4-pack yet, since we have male and female Mandalorian modes now? Keep up the great work. Yeah, this is a great mystery to me. I really honestly do not know why we do not have a Mandalorian 4-pack in one of those white boxes. That seems like an obvious thing for them to do. You've got all those Mandalorians on the beach scene at the start of season 3, all lots of different paint schemes and what have you. They could do a 4-pack of those, and in my opinion that's what they could have put the Judge in there with. So we've got the pipelined Mandalorian Judge. I'm pretty sure we'll have that revealed very soon, and to me that's a bit of a wasted slot on a card back. That could have gone in a 4-pack. You didn't even have to call him the Judge in that 4-pack. You could just have like, here's 4 Mandalorians from that beach scene, and one of them happens to be decoed like the Judge. I don't really feel the Judge needs his own release personally, but it's a great mystery. Maybe it's still to come. Maybe they're going to be doing it. They do like Mandalorians at the moment, so it wouldn't surprise me. But yeah, it does surprise me that we haven't already got that. Jimmy Smith says, hey BB, I've got a question for next week. Do you think we'll ever get a Pong Krell figure in the vintage collection? And if so, would you buy it? I really think he would be a cool figure to have. Of course, yes, I would buy it. I mean, everyone knows he's not exactly my favourite character. That species isn't really my favourite, but I am glad that he won March Madness, especially when it got down to like the quarterfinals, semi-finals, because I didn't really want obvious characters to win. I wanted a character to win that, you know, is going to trouble Hasbro a little bit to make, basically. And then if they do make Pong Krell, you can actually say 100% this is down to the community wanting this figure, for voting it to be winner of March Madness and things like that. I do worry about Pong Krell in terms of how much it would cost. I've got a feeling it would be, you know, a deluxe price in the Jango Fett sort of price range. Maybe even a little bit more. We'll have to wait and see what they do with that. That's my only fear with Pong Krell, but absolutely I'd buy it. I would love to review it. It'd be one hell of a figure, that's for sure. Bite Me 138 says, hey BB, first time commenter. My question is, with so many re-release figures and Trooper multi-packs, why does Hasbro neglect re-releasing the Imperial Navy Commander, and do you think there would be a potential for a multi-pack? I'd love to see a 4-pack with an Imperial Commander and 3 Imperial Navy Commanders. Yeah, I guess with all the other figures that they've re-released, it is a bit strange why we haven't had that one. I think that one on the secondary market maybe wasn't one of the sort of tougher ones to find, more expensive ones. And he was also available in the 3.75 inch black series as well, and I believe he was a bit of a peg warmer then as well. So maybe that's why we haven't seen him. He also does have swivel hips. It's quite an older figure. If they re-release this figure, I would want them to update it. Swivel hips are not acceptable anymore, so they could definitely improve on this one. So maybe that's why. Maybe they're looking at this figure and say it's not up to today's standards, and that's why they haven't released a 4-pack of him. But he looks pretty good standing there, doesn't he? P Diddy 82 says, hey boss, question for next week. Do you think we'll ever see a chromed C3PO or R2D2 in TVC? We can see that Hasbro are still able to carry out this manufacturing method from retro releases. Would you want TVC droids chromed, or are you happy with the paint they are using? Thanks. Yeah, this is an interesting one for sure. I mean, obviously, the VAC metalized thing comes from the original Kenner line. You know, the R2D2 and the C3PO are chromed, you know, VAC metalized, whatever you want to call it. And Hasbro have replicated that in the past. This figure here. But to me, this is inaccurate. And Chris at Baylan Skoll did a great article about C3PO the other day. It's on his website. Because you never actually see 3PO This super shiny, apart from at the end of A New Hope where he's at the ceremony and he's all been, you know, shined up and whatever. This for me is really inaccurate because this is actually supposed to be the Jabba's Palace version of 3PO. It's the one where you've got that thing where you can pop out his eye where he's getting attacked by Salacious Crumb. But, you know, he was never this shiny in Jabba's Palace. In fact, he's really sort of, you know, weathered up and dirty. He's been in the Tatooine Desert. He's been, you know, in Jabba's Palace. So apart from the sort of green gunk on him, you know, it's not really accurate. And also, because he is vac metalized, I swear that's why this figure's so loose. This was straight out of the packet. I bought this, I opened it, and he is so loose. And I think that's because of the sort of shiny paint that they use on those joints. And that is another reason why they don't do vac metalize, is obviously you've got the expense factor, but also the paint chips off at the articulation. That's why the knees are a slightly different plastic and a different colour and things like that. So I'm not really too bothered whether they vac metalize them or not. I think for the most part, C3PO is more of a duller gold. I would say the version that we do have in the vintage collection is too dull. It needs to be a bit more shiny. But when you look at what they're doing with like the Mandalorian and things like that at the moment and how shiny he is, I think they could get a really good gold shine for 3PO. But with the retro collection, 100% they had to do them true to the original release, the original Kenner figures. They had to be that metalized. But modern figures and accuracy in terms of the films, I'm not really too bothered. Trace Green 9565 says, hey Tim, question for next week. If you had to pick 3 figures that came out in TVC 2.0 to be grails like 1.0 figures are now, what would they be and why? Yeah, okay, so I'm not going to count figures that come in HasLabs and things like that, or the Bib Fortuna in, you know, expensive sets, because obviously those carded figures are a bit more expensive. But in terms of ones that have risen in price since TVC came back, then you've got the Tank Commander. He seems to command quite a high price. You've got the Rise of Skywalker Rey. That one seems to go for a fair bit of money these days compared to others. TVC 2.0, you know, there's a lot of it around. You know, a lot of it isn't really worth anything. It's worth sometimes less than retail. But those two specifically, if I had to pick another one, obviously you've got the Antok Merrick, but he was packed in with the X-Wing, so you can kind of understand why that one's more expensive than the others. Darth Revan, they have stated that they're not going to be producing as many figures in a run these days, and Revan seems to be the first casualty of that. He seems to be quite hard to get. People are, you know, scalping him on eBay and what have you. So there's 3 for you, buddy. Andy McGlink says, with the trailer of Star Wars Outlaws game dropping, any good characters for the vintage collection? A Commando Droid character can be an easy repaint for Clone Wars figure. Yeah, I did like the look of those. I've got to say I was a bit in two minds about the Outlaws trailer. As much as I think it looks great, I think they have been a little bit lazy with the design of the main character. Essentially, let's face it guys, it is a female Han Solo. She's dressed like Han Solo. I don't know, I just think they need to be a little bit more original about these things. You know, Cal Kestis was a good design character, for example. As I said, she just looks like female Han Solo to me, and I just had a bit of a problem with that. Brick Built Blake says, hey Tim, great episode as always, but I have to say it's really been bumming me out to see so many people hating on the first Acolyte teaser. It was one trailer, yet people are acting like they know the show is going to stink. Give it a chance. Rant over. Now, question for next week. Which of these characters do you think will get first in TVC? Baylan Skoll, Ezra in his Ahsoka look, or a brand new Anakin Skywalker figure? Out of those 3, I think the first one that we'll get is Baylan Skoll. JL Mendieta says, hi Bossk, thanks a lot for great content. I don't have other friends that collect, so being part of this community helps me not feeling so lonely with my hobby. For question for next week, how do you store the carded figures that you don't display? I prefer to display my figures loose, but also one carded of each. However, now with over 300 figures, I'm running out of walls to hang them on, and was thinking about which would be the best way to keep them safe and not damaging them. This is a problem with, you know, the vintage collection being so vast now. You know, over 340 carded figures now. I do not have space to display them all on my walls either, so I tend to use the shipper boxes. These, if I can just get it into camera. So these are the shipper boxes that figures come in. So if you order a case of a whole wave, then you get the whole box. I've got plenty of those, believe me, in storage. Carl Wilson says, hi BB, question for next week. Do you think the timing of the new HasLab release is right, given the current Ghost HasLab hasn't reached us yet? It's looking like we could have paid for 2 HasLabs and have not received the first. Great video as always. I think that is a little bit of a problem. Yes, the rumour is that we're going to be, or not the rumour, they have confirmed that we're going to be shown a new HasLab on May the 4th. So I'm imagining that, you know, the opening for backing it will be open at the same time, which means we won't have our ghosts. So yeah, potentially we would have paid for 2 HasLabs. I think it is a bit of a problem. It's not ideal, but I wouldn't want that to get in the way of, you know, new things coming out. Basically, I can wait a couple of months. The ghost is due to come out in sort of early fall, is it? Like August, September, late summer, early fall, I think, which is about in line with those Rebels figures as well. So, you know, there's a couple of months in there. It's probably because maybe the ghost has been slightly delayed and they didn't want that to put their May the 4th plans in jeopardy, maybe. I don't know. Reckless Deck says, Tim, when it comes to HasLabs, Hasbro seems to add lots of figures to the line to support the HasLab item, like they did with the Rebels figures, both packed in and now in the main line. If the rumours of the Cantina HasLab are true, aside from potential packed in and stretch goal Cantina patrons, it also created a huge opening for several A New Hope mains like the Farm Boy Luke, Ben Kenobi, C-3PO, Han Solo and Chewbacca, and also March Madness favourites Greedo and Garandan. Do you think a Cantina HasLab increases the likelihood of seeing these A New Hope figures getting made sooner rather than later? It definitely increases it, 100%. You're right, they do want to sort of supplement any HasLabs with figures. So if the HasLab is a Cantina, then I would imagine some of those figures that you've listed there will be available around the time it drops, for example, a little bit like they've done with the Ghost. I certainly don't think all of the ones that you've listed there are going to be available, but I would imagine some of them would. And everybody's been screaming for the, you know, make the mains, so maybe they're the ones that they're going to concentrate on. I certainly hope so, because they are way overdue. RT2D666 says, Hi Bossk, there has been some chat on your channel recently regarding card backs. My question is, which card backs would be your all-time favourites? Mine would have to be A New Hope Han Solo from the Kenner line, Luke Dagobah landing, followed closely by the Mandalorian in his brown armour look. Cheers. Yeah, I mean, obviously I've got the Clone Commander Cody there in shot. He is definitely one of my favourite card backs. I think that's just such an amazing image. And the one next to it that I've put there is fast becoming one of my favourite card backs. I just think the glow of the orange sunset going on there with that Phase 1 Clone Trooper, that is a really, really good card back. In terms of the original Kenner line, of course, you've got some real classics. I like the Chewie. As you've mentioned, Luke Dagobah landing is a great one from TVC 1.0. But there's been some recent ones that I just absolutely love, like, you know, the Vader, the Return of the Jedi Vader with the Sebastian Shaw. You've got Luke Skywalker from Jabba's Palace. That's always been one, or if not my favourite. Just trying to think of some of the others that we've had. The Admiral Piet. What a great card back that is with the Death Star in the background. So there's a few of them there for you, buddy. Andrew KG says, Hey BB, question for next week. With all the new clone molds being released, why do you think Hasbro doesn't use the ARC Trooper mold for these? I'm a fan of removable helmets and thought the ARC Trooper had a good helmet to body size ratio. Next question is, do you think Hasbro will stock up, make more of the recent releases like Darth Revan? I missed out on the initial release, and eBay sellers are charging double for some of these figures. Thanks for all you do. Yeah, that's what I mentioned about Revan. I think Hasbro did actually come out and say, I can't remember where it was, but they said production numbers are going to go down, but you know, because a lot of them are ending up at Ross and Ollie's and other discount stores and things like that, so they must have been producing too many, so they're scaling that in. And Revan, yeah, it does seem like Revan could be one that's rare, and I have no idea, I'm sorry, if they'll do a second run of those. In terms of your first question, I've got the mold here that you're talking about. It's a funny one, isn't it? Because the new clone body does have a lot more going for it compared to this one. You know, it's got the new barbell hips, for example. The articulation's out of this world. These are good, but the plastic Karma does get in the way of the legs, and this piece has always been a little bit loose without the helmet on. But yeah, you're right. In terms of the scale size between the helmet and the body, it is very good. But yeah, maybe they just couldn't use it for a standard clone. But you know, they've used this one plenty of times. I think we've actually had 10 different figures that have used this mold now. So, you know, it hasn't gone to waste, that's for sure. Toby Kelting says, Hi buddy, I've got 2 questions for next week. Your animated Bossk that appears when you talk about the like and subscribe looks fantastic. Did you create him yourself? I've got to say I didn't, buddy. I'm not that talented when it comes to things like that. I got someone on the internet to do that for me, a graphic designer. The second question regarding the new Bossk that I sent you, I learned in an older Leia review that Leia and Bossk have a thing for each other. Can you please make sure that your new Bossk gets some Leia time as well. There you go, buddy. And if you're wondering what he's talking about, then go back and watch my Leia Hoth review, I think it was. There's a funny moment in that video. John Rosem01 says, hi Tim, thanks for another great episode. Question for next week. I know you obviously collect TVC and the original Kenner figures. When did you start collecting Star Wars, and did you collect any of the other 3.75 inch lines between Kenner and TVC? And if so, was there a line that was a particular favourite? So I would say that I started collecting Star Wars as an adult, probably when I was about 18 or 19. I was in a comic shop and I saw a Biker Scout. They wanted £6 for him loose. This has got to be maybe in round about, I don't know, 1995, 96. Maybe I was about 20, something like that. So I was buying a few figures then loose for a collection, I guess. Then when eBay came around in around 2000, I started buying carded figures from America. So I guess I was a collector back then. But also before then, I was just like everybody else. I was collecting the Power of the Force when they came out. The episode 1 line, I got loads and loads of those. But the ones that I missed were like the Saga collection and the Legacy collection, because at that point is when I'd started a family and bought a house and things like that. And yeah, just collecting wasn't really at the forefront of my priorities at that time. My family was. Now my children are a little bit older and we're a little bit more established in our home and things like that. You know, I started collecting again. That's when I did the channel and the website. But yeah, those two lines were the Saga collection and the Legacy collection were two, you know, lines not to be missed, and unfortunately I missed them, so I've been going back and getting all those figures. David Gherkin says, thanks for all you do for the community. My question for next week is, with the pre-orders of the Rebels Ghost Crew recently and the upcoming HasLab release, what are the chances of getting an Ahsoka from Rebels series? Her outfit from the series has been on my TVC wish list for years. Yeah, this is a strange one, isn't it? Because they've done that figure in the Black series, haven't they? And she is pretty cool, and she is different to any other Ahsoka that we have. We are going to be getting Ahsoka the White from the Ahsoka series. Obviously, she has that poncho. She does wear that poncho, but over a different outfit in the Rebels series. I don't know, man. I'm not too sure if they're going to be doing that figure. I think we might have missed that one, just like we've missed Season 1 Ezra as well. So yeah, I think we may have had all of the Ahsokas that we're going to get for a little while anyway. Alright then guys, that's it for this week's episode. Another mammoth episode. Thank you so much for watching. I want to thank everybody for submitting their questions. Don't forget to submit your questions for next week's episode. Thank you to my Patreon supporters and channel members. As always, your support is greatly appreciated. And if you wanted to become a Patreon supporter or channel member, the links are in the description below. Thanks for watching everybody, and we shall see you on the next one.